In this challenge, I'm going to have you compare the compositional strengths and weaknesses of two images. I'll show them to you in just a second. I want to remind you that you want to use all four pillars of composition that we've been studying throughout this chapter to compare and contrast the compositional strength of each image. Decide which image has the best overall composition and why. Here are the two images. And again, be sure to use all four pillars of composition and all the subsegments that we talked about. I think you should be able to complete this in about 20 minutes, but if it takes you a little bit longer, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to tell. Have fun with your first image analysis. Okay, here we go with our solution to our first challenges. Remember, your challenge here was to compare and contrast the relative compositional strengths of these two images using the four pillars that we've talked about, starting with simplicity and then moving to asymmetry and then eyeline and then point of view. And we're going to follow it in that order, and that's the order in which I recommend you perform your critiques of images like we're doing here. And remember, the foundation for everything is what? It's simplicity. And we spoke about four different parts of simplicity. Remember, that was number of elements, primary elements in an image, all right? The complexity of those elements. Are they separated? And then is there a focal portion of the image? So let's start with those four. Let's start with the left-hand image and see how many components that we have. And remember, there's just not one God-given way to count components. So, we may disagree on how many components there are by one or sometimes even two. But in this one, the way I would count these is I would start with one here, and then this would probably be a second one just because it's nearly in silhouette. So 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. If you counted these two as one, that's fine. Then you'd have 5 elements. Moving over to this image, I would say the sandstones are 1, the tree is 2, the beautiful juniper tree, the sky is 3, and then maybe this background here, the far background, is 4. So 3 or 4 elements here and 5 or 6 elements here. So just by that alone, this is a stronger image. And when you just look at the two, which one is easier to look at? It's this one. And one of the reasons is because it has fewer components in it. Okay, next is the complexity of those components. Pretty simple. The sandstones are pretty simple here, right, internally. There's a little bit more of the juniper bushes here, but the detail is pretty well present. The juniper tree itself, the detail, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the best, I'd give this about an 8. But it's not bad. It's fairly simple. The background sky, pretty darn simple. And because this is far background here, we wouldn't expect to see a lot of detail back here. And it's a fairly small area, so it's okay. So, overall, the internal complexity of this image is pretty good. I'd give it a, 85 or a 90. On this image here, we've got lots of internal complexity. Let's start with the simple stuff. Sky is pretty simple. The rocks are pretty simple. This middle ground, I'd give that about a 50% because, see, there's a lot of detail. Here you can see it pretty well, but you lose a lot of detail. This becomes kind of a blank area in the image. Where we really run into problems, of course, is up in here where we don't see much detail at all. And because we've got crossovers here, we run into problems in this portion of the image. So internal complexity here, whereas this, I'd give this an 85 to a 90. I'd probably give this around a 60. In particular because of the foreground. All right, now separation of elements. Back to our right-hand image. Separation is good, isn't it? Separation of the rocks from the sky, from the tree from the sky, and from the foreground from the background. Overall separation is here. It's pretty darn good. The only place where we don't have excellent separation is right here in the lower half of the trunk. So I'd give separation on this image probably 90. 85 to 90 again. This image... And this is really one of the key issues with this image, is that there's good separation between the rocks and the sky and pretty good between the rocks and this portion of the grass. But there's very poor separation here in the foreground. There's overlaps between this juniper bush and all the low-profile bushes here. And there's crossovers between this tree and the rocks and the tree and the grasses and the tree and the foreground, the snag. So there's lots of overlap. So the separation for this particular image is not very good. I'd put this below 50%. So just on simplicity alone, we're going to give the nod to this image. But let's keep going. Let's go to asymmetry. Just quickly and easily, you can tell that the asymmetry of this image is excellent. When we look at left and right, top and bottom, all four quadrants, very good, right? And we've got the beautiful juniper tree well off to the side, so it's not smack dab in the middle. We've got this nice rock outcrop over here, off to the right. The overall asymmetry here is not bad in terms of the mountains in the background, or the rocks in the background, but this is almost smack dab in the middle of the image, never mind the lack of separation and crossover. Unlike this, which is offset well to the left, this is a little bit too close, plus the crossover. So not good. In terms of eye lines, the right-hand image has very nice perspective eye lines in terms of foreground, middle ground, and background. There's a fairly nice eye line, although it is interrupted by the sandstone outcrop here, but it's not too bad. But overall, the eye line in this image is the foreground, middle ground, and background. Plus, we have, of course, the beautiful outline of the primary element in the foreground, which is the tree. This image on the left, the only real solid eye line is the top of the rocks, and it's interrupted by both the trees and the snag, as you see here. If this snag were against the sky, it would be a very nice eye line. It certainly is not. So overall, eye lines are not particularly good on this image. I'd put it well below 50%. And point of view, it's about the same on both images, with a slight nod to this one, because the camera position is low enough. We've got the red rock outcrops and the tree against the sky, so we've got good contrast, and that's why we've got better separation here, where the camera angle is actually too high. It's a standard human view. It would have been nice if the camera angle were down, would set all of this off against the sky a little bit better. So there, using our analysis, using the 4 pillars, we've done our first critique on 2 images, and I think we can definitely give the overall composition to the right-hand image. We'll give the nod to that image.